Sophia, do you need anything? Are you good?
No, what I see right now on the screen is women power the vote, like a graphics. Is that what I should be seeing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm good.
And I'm just going to say welcome to all of our attendees. We're going to get started with a little bit of entertainment in a couple of minutes. We're going to wait for everyone to get logged in first.
Hello there. Is that Regina? Oh, well, we can't talk.
Can't talk.
Yes.
Can y'all hear my mother talking in the background?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello, Chief. How are you?
Fine.
Mm-hmm. We hear you loud and clear, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay. This technology is
It can be challenging.
yeah, very, very challenging. Just a little bit. Just a little. Okay.
All right, I'm going to go shut the door between rooms.
Yeah, okay.
How are you tonight, Chief Sears?
I'm doing very well. What about you?
I have the door
Doing
shut.
well, doing
Okay,
well. So
good.
glad you could join us.
Oh, happy to join. And thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And early congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice Leah Sears. It's Linda. How are you? Thank you for
Good,
coming.
Linda. After all this talking online, it's so good to see you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
For joining us.
Thank you.
Beautiful red.
Oh, thank you.
Can't see you yet, but
You
that's just
can't see what's, I put on my UGG boots just to feel comfortable.
Have my fluffy house shoes on
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Okay.
my house is always so cold. I'm currently wearing fuzzy slippers right now.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody can see.
They are the order of the evening.
Well, my daughter said, oh, it'll help you relax. Just put your Uggs on.
Chief Justice Leah, do you want to say a few words so we can make sure that your sound check is good?
Yes. Hello. It's nice to see you. Thank you for bestowing on me it's Eleanor Raoul Green Award. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. How's that?
Perfect.
It's good.
Okay. Oh, by the way, just to make it easier, most people just call me Justice Sears.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Just Justice Sears. I know there's the ward and the chief and all that, but that'll be fine. Okay. Thank you.
How we doing, Linda? You want me to play a few?
Will you start playing, Reginald?
Okay, here we go. Yes, I can.
Thank you.
And then will you all pop him up on screen? Because I'm still just seeing that graphics.
I have two cameras.
So I think when you start playing, I can either stop the PowerPoint. Maybe. Yeah. And I can change it to speaker view. And so when he starts playing, he should show up on the screen.
There he is.
How we doing on time, Linda? Thank you.
Thank
you
you
very
so much, Reginald.
Thank you.
Everyone, our program will be beginning in about 4 minutes, so please make yourselves comfortable. If you need to get a drink or anything else, you've got 4 minutes before the program starts. Thank you all.
All right.
Good evening, Madam President Deborah Turner. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm sorry I had to unmute myself. It's wonderful to be here. So exciting, and everybody, it's just delightful. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Great
So
to
much.
see
That's
you.
why we have these 3 minutes to just do logistics.
We're so glad you could join us.
We
Well,
are.
I'm very honored to be able to be here. So this is exciting. You have a wonderful program lined up. You guys have been doing such amazing work this year. I mean, my gosh, you have been busy.
We have, and we really appreciate the support we've been getting from National as well.
Well, we're glad that we could be there for you. We're all in this together.
We are.
So, it's nice to see you again, Susanna, by the way. Yes.
You too. It's been a minute since we've had a meeting.
Good evening, Ambassador Young.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing better than I deserve. And in the presence of all of you wonderful women, I'm doing even better.
Always the charmer.
Always.
We are so honored to be in your presence.
Right.
It is definitely an honor. I was really awed when I saw that you were going to be in the group today.
Well, it's a difficult day. I've got relatives over in Lake Charles,
Oh,
and they're all in my age bracket, so I'm worried about them.
understandably.
And they've never left. They've never left Lake Charles in a hurricane, so they're not inclined to leave it now. And my cousin is, I think, 92.
Wow.
Well, I
And,
hope he stays safe.
Well, yeah, I talked to him yesterday, but he's very philosophical about it all.
Mm-hmm. Please know they will be in our prayers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know, that's what I don't want to talk about, but I need that we've never had a time when we've got a climate crisis and we've got a health crisis and we've got an economic crisis and a race crisis.
John Hope Bryant.
So,
John Hope Bryant. Or whatever.
hey, I'm on a Zoom call. John, I'll call you when I get off. I'll call you back. Okay. I keep that up here because I don't know what I'm doing. So Trisha's at her house and she's handling this from there. So I keep the phone up. So if I need to talk to her, or she needs to talk to me offline, I can. It's worked pretty good so far.
Excellent.
Should
All
we
right.
mute or stay unmuted, or does it matter?
It would be great if you could stay muted to help clean the line and just unmute when it's time to speak. Thank you, Susanna, at 7 o'clock.
We are ready to go.
Welcome, everyone, to the League of Women Voters of Georgia. First Women Power the Vote. This is the 5th day of our Equality Week, celebrating 100 years of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. As many of you know, the League was born out of the suffrage movement. So this is a dual celebration today. It's also our 100th anniversary. Women's Equality Day commemorates the passage of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, granting the right to vote to women. In 1971, the U.S. Congress designated August 26 as Women's Equality Day. Hello, my name is Linda Rigby Bridges, and I'm the State Board Director and your event chair for tonight. Now, a few housekeeping rules. Look at the bottom right of your screen. There's an icon with 3 dots labeled More. Click on it and you will have options that will allow you to have an interactive experience with the program participants tonight. You can also select chat to enter comments or use the hand icon to raise it and show your support to the speakers tonight. Some of you may have icons labeled reactions, where you can also find the hand icon and there should be a chat icon. And of course, it depends on what device you're on tonight. So turn your volume up, mute your mic, and sit back and relax. Our program for the evening will include powerful speeches from women and history makers. You will see some familiar faces, and you will learn about women who have powered the vote. At this time, I'd like to introduce our president, Susanna Scott. She's a native Georgian who was raised in a politically active family which discussed politics regularly at the dinner table. She has her JD from Georgia State University College of Law and the Masters of Law from Trinity College Dublin. Help me welcome Susanna Scott.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you to the Equality Week team that's co-chaired by Linda and by Gailey Kesey. They've done incredible work this week, and I really want to thank them for all the effort they put into making this a great week. The League of Women Voters of Georgia has a rich history of action and advocacy. The League is a tri-federated organization. We have a national office in DC, advocating on Capitol Hill. We have state boards in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. And the heart of our grassroots organization are our 700 plus local leagues. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our past state league presidents who may be attending the program today. To name a few that I know are tuned in: Martha Ann Sanders, Sally Fitzgerald, Elisabeth MacNamara, Elizabeth Poitras, and Tracy Atkinson. Thank you all for continuing the League's legacy and ensuring the women power the vote. And women have been powering the vote in Georgia since 1922, which is the year that Georgia women were first able to vote, due to the requirement that voters had to register 6 months prior to an election in which they would vote. So the amendment passed a little bit too late in Georgia for us to participate in the 1920 election. In 1922, Georgia also had its first female U.S. Senator, Rebecca Latimer Felton, who was appointed to fill a vacancy caused by the death of Senator Thomas E. Watson. The governor at the time, Thomas Hardwick, chose Felton because he wanted someone who would not be a serious threat in his upcoming special election for the seat. His plans were thwarted by Walter F. George, who won that special election. But Senator George allowed Senator Felton to be sworn in and serve for a day on November 21st, 1922. Senator Felton was the first woman to sit in the Senate and the only woman to serve in that capacity from Georgia until January 6th of this year, when Governor Brian Kemp appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler to the seat left vacant by Senator Johnny Isakson's resignation. And there will be a special election for that seat on November 3rd. Georgia's women have had slightly more representation in the U.S. House of Representatives, starting in 1940 with the first woman, Florence Revelle Gibbs, who was elected to fill a vacancy left by her husband's death. After her, we had 6 more women over the last 60 years, including Helen Douglas Mankin, Iris Fairclough Blitch, Cynthia McKinney, Denise Majette, Karen Handel, and Lucy McBath. And so in the last 100 years, we've only had women representing us in Congress for about 24 years. And there's a chance for, actually not even a chance, Georgia will experience a new milestone this year, or when 2 U.S. representatives will be elected as women in the 4th and the 6th congressional district. And that will happen no matter who wins the election in November. And there's also a chance for a 3rd woman serving from the 7th district. So we're actually going to up our representation in Georgia in Congress this year, which is wonderful. We've also only had 8 women elected to statewide office starting in 1995. And those women include Linda Schranko, Kathy Cox, Angela Elizabeth Spear, Kathy with a K Cox, Leah Ward Sears, Karen Handel, Carol Hunstein, and Tricia Pridemore. I will say that we've had more success in getting women elected in Georgia in the state legislature. And this year we had 30.5% of the state legislature was female, which is the highest it's ever been. And it means that we're actually, as a group of voters who make up more than 50% of the population, we're actually starting to be represented equally in the state legislature. We have a ways to go, but we're on our way. As more women become involved in the electoral process as voters, campaign volunteers, and candidates, we will come closer to ensuring that our democracy is truly representative of all our citizens. When women have a seat at the table, their experiences and points of view can provide insight and nuances that are needed when grappling with complex issues that affect us all. This is why it's imperative that we continue to power the vote. Thank you all for joining us. And with that, I turn the program back over to Linda.
Thank you, Susanna. Now, on to our very special surprise guest. She was born on November 14th, 1956, in Shiraz, Iran. She was born to American parents. She is an American businesswoman and former governmental official. She earned a BA degree in psychology from Stanford University in 1978 and her JD from the University of Michigan Law School in 1981. She served as the senior advisor and assistant for public engagement and intergovernmental affairs from 2009 to 2017 under the leadership of President Barack Obama. Raise your hands, everyone, for Valerie Jarrett.
Hello to everyone joining the League of Women and Voters of Georgia Equality Week and also to the Women Power the Vote event. My name is Valerie Jarrett, and I'm the board chair of When We All Vote and the co-chair of the United States of Women, and I'm delighted to have a chance to address you today. In the 100 years since the 19th Amendment expanded access to the right to vote to women, and over the ensuing century, as we fought to make sure that women of color were included in that right, we've seen the power that women have when their voices are heard. The League of Women Voters has now done a century's worth of work to ensure that our voices are informed, effective, and as powerful as they deserve. That's why I am just delighted that the League of Women Voters of Georgia has joined the Gender Equity Voting Collaborative with When We All Vote and the United States of Women. The Non-Partisan Voting Collaborative shines a light on countless organizations, especially those that are run by women who are working around the clock to make sure their communities are voting. We share best practices, training, and tactics, and take concrete actions. By bringing women working on gender equity together, we are building a community of organizations and individuals that encourage their friends, their families, their communities to register and to vote. Because we know that, as John Lewis reminded us just before his death, democracy is not a state, it is an act. So let's make sure that we are doing absolutely everything within our power to move forward. Stay involved, informed, and empowered by what we can do when we work together. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Valerie, for those kind words. Now, to officially start the program, please help me welcome our Mistress of Ceremony, Sophia Choi. Sophia anchors Channel 2 Action News on Saturdays and Sunday AM and is a general assignment reporter for Channel 2 Action News. Prior to joining WSB-TV, Sophia worked the 4 and 6 p.m. shift and was the anchor at KVBC-TV, the MVC affiliated in Las Vegas. While she was there, she earned 2 Electronic Media Awards for her work. Before moving to Las Vegas, Sophia worked at the primetime anchor for CNN Headline News, where she covered various breaking stories, including the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and Hurricane Wilma in Florida. She also anchored various programs for CNN and CNN International. I will now turn it over to our Emmy-nominated MC for today's program, Sophia Choi.
Thank you, Linda, for that awesome introduction. And what about hearing from Valerie Jarrett? We know this is such a busy time for her, and for her to take time out like that tells you just how important this organization is. In the news business, we call that a get, right? So congratulations to the League for that get. It is such a pleasure to be here with you, everyone, today virtually. As you can already see, we have a power-packed program for you today with guest speakers who will amplify just how important women are to the political process. At this time, I'd like to introduce the League's national president, Deborah Turner. Deborah Turner serves as the 20th president of the League of Women Voters of the United States and chair of the Board of Trustees of the League of Women Voters Education Fund. She was elected board president at the 54th National Convention of the League of Women Voters in June of 2020 and will serve in this position until June 2022. Dr. Turner received her BS from Iowa State University and her MD from the University of Iowa, where she completed her residency in biology. In July 2015, she left active practice to become vice president of international programs, medical programs of the Outreach Program. She participated in 12 medical missions to Tanzania since 2011 and worked with Sing Ida's Medical Center, Outreach's Children's Feeding Centers, and Rotary International. She received her JD from Drake University in 2007. Dr. Turner was inducted into the Iowa Women's Hall of Fame in 2013 and received the Gertrude Rush Award from the National Bar Association in 2015. She lives in Nebraska and has 2 grown children, a son and a niece. Please welcome Dr. Deborah Turner.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Sophia. And thank you to Susanna and to Linda. I tell you, it is great to be here. I'd like to thank all the members of the League of Women Voters of Georgia for hosting this fantastic event. And wow, what an inspiration to actually hear from Valerie Jarrett. It is an honor to be with you today on Women's Equality Day. And while I wish we could be together in person, I want to say that the League of Women Voters of Georgia has not let this pandemic slow you down. Your Equality Week of programming and events is inspiring, and the work you have done throughout this challenging year is truly amazing. Over the last century, we've seen how women bring their stories to the ballot box, elevating issues like education, healthcare, reproductive rights, children's rights, and wages for women in all workplaces. Women have used the power of their vote to give voice to the issues they care about, and our country is better for it. I am so impressed with how leagues across the country now have adapted in the last 6 months to learning to use new technology and pivoting our activities to meet the challenges of our times. And no one knows more about challenges than the Georgia voters. Already this year, we have seen Georgia voters exercising their rights against all odds and oppression. Throughout the primary, we saw last-minute poll closures that created confusion and long lines at the remaining voting sites. But Georgia's voters still turned out and would not be silenced, and neither was the League. We know voter suppression when we see it, and we know the tricks of the primary election were just a dress rehearsal. Voter suppression has been around forever, but it looks a little different in 2020. COVID-19 has devastated our country, but can also be a tool for voter suppression. A spike in late October could lead to more polling closures around the state, around many states, or consolidation of voting sites, and therefore creating difficulties with election day. So we must be aware and be ready for that challenge. Restrictions and tax on voting by mail are simply a form of voter suppression, requiring affidavits, witness signatures, or a copy of a voter ID are all barriers to casting a ballot. Some states even require 2 witnesses' signatures on a ballot. These restrictions create a huge barrier for someone living alone, especially during a pandemic where it may not be possible to safely acquire these witnesses. One of the most, however, pervasive and modern forms of voter suppression is misinformation, fanned by the rapid explosion of social media and many times directed to specific communities, particularly communities of color. And the fact that voters do not recognize this as such and therefore are led down the path to spread misinformation without even knowing it. The League is working to counter all forms of voter suppression and particularly to encounter misinformation by providing accurate, nonpartisan, trusted election information that voters have come to rely on from the League, especially using our nonpartisan election website, vote411.org. I see Vote for One as one of our best weapons to fight back against these attacks. Coupling this effort by working with election officials, as you do here in Georgia, requesting that any changes to polling sites be posted publicly on the state's websites and at polling places as soon as possible. We are also tracking these election changes and keeping them up to date on Vote 411. Throughout the primaries, our national staff were updating the site daily, sometimes hourly, with the COVID-related election changes and other election changes that were state-specific. And this is available in both English and Spanish. Litigation is another tool in our tool belt that we have voting against voter suppression. And since the pandemic has broken out, we have engaged in more than 50 lawsuits in more than 35 states fighting voter suppression. The League has sued to remove witness signature requirements on absentee ballots, to reverse unlawful voter purges, to expand vote by mail, and to protect the post office. We continue to join lawsuits and advocate for voters to have multiple options to make their voice heard, and will do so right up to and through Election Day. An all mail-in election is not the right answer for all, and so the League has been mindful to protect the in-person voting options while we advocate to expand vote by mail and early voting. That way, all voters will be given options, as many options as possible. Applying a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens to voter access helps us to assure all voters, including those with disabilities or those who need special language assistance or those who are new to vote, will have the help they need even at vote polling sites. We are not here to tell any person how to vote. We are here to make sure that every voter has the resources and information to make the right voting plan and exercise their right to vote safely. I often think of the words of your great George's favorite son, John Lewis, who said, "The vote is precious. It is almost sacred. It is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have in a democracy." For me, voting is sacred. When I think about our suffrage leaders who work so hard against all odds to win the right for women to vote, particularly about the women of color who are doing this work despite the added challenges and discrimination they face, I get emotional and I get motivated. This is our right, enshrined in the Constitution, and we refuse to let it be taken away. As long as there will be people trying to silence voters, there will be the League. Nothing will stop our work of empowering voters and defending democracy. Not a pandemic, not voter suppression, not misinformation. We are the League of Women Voters, and we have 69 days to deliver on this election for the American people. This election is already in the history books, but due to the hard work of so many of you, I am optimistic that the story of 2020 will have a powerful and successful ending. So when you talk to your friends and your family about voting, remember that this is no better time than now to make a voting plan for this election. 100 days later, women are still doing our part. We may not have full equality yet, but with our votes, we can change that. So as I try to inspire voters, I say, vote because you want a responsive school board. Vote because you want a congressperson who represents your interests. Vote because you want mayors who are responsive to the people. And vote because we, the people, want a more perfect union. We deserve a more perfect union. And when voters, particularly young voters, look at me and say, well, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't count, I look them in the eye and I say, if your vote doesn't count, why are so many trying to suppress it? Mm-hmm. So thank you. And let's get out the vote for Georgia this November. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and congratulations on your election. We see that the League is already doing such exciting things across the nation. All right, at this time, I'd like to introduce past president of the LWV-US, Elisabeth MacNamara. Elisabeth MacNamara served as president of the League of Women Voters of the United States from 2010 to 2016. Elisabeth joined LWV in 1983 and has served in various leadership roles, including president of the state league and a local league in Georgia. Elisabeth is an attorney and was a career prosecutor right here in Georgia. She retired, though, in 2010, and she recently moved to Texas, where she joins a son and 2 granddaughters. She is a member of the League of Women Voters of Collin County now. Please welcome Elisabeth MacNamara.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good evening to everyone. Good evening from the Dallas Metroplex. It would be completely inappropriate to speak to any group in Georgia without reminding us of the words of John Lewis, the last words of, or the last message of John Lewis to the nation. Democracy is not a state. It is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we call the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself. 2020 is a momentous year for so many reasons. The moment that we celebrate today is the moment 100 years ago when the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing the right to vote to women, became part of the Constitution. That moment in 1920 came as a result of the acts of generations of women of all ages and races to build a beloved community based on the belief in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. But it was not and could not be the final act. Too many women, like too many men, were left out of that vision. It was the work of later generations of civil rights leaders like Ambassador Young and John Lewis to do its part to build the beloved community based on the belief in the power of voters of color to create that more perfect democracy. Every civil rights movement in American history starts with a vision of a more perfect union, and every movement rightly focuses on securing the vote. The vote is the most democratic of acts. It is the act that each one of us can employ generation after generation to create that more perfect democracy. The arc of our history does bend towards justice, as Dr. King believed. And it does so because throughout our history, ordinary people have recognized injustice and taken democratic action. Believers in women's suffrage organized, lectured, published, and lobbied for the incremental changes needed to win the vote. For over 70 years, they sustained a movement that demonstrated and lobbied, and over time, increasingly voted. The Western states came into the Union guaranteeing women the right to vote. By 1920, women had won the limited voting rights in almost every state, unfortunately, not including Georgia and other states in the Deep South. Incremental change was essential to reaching the final goal of a federal amendment guaranteeing votes to women, and it remains essential 100 years later to our continuing struggle for full equality. It is easy and right in 2020 to focus on the challenges facing our country, from a raging pandemic to social unrest to chaos in our elections. This has been a difficult year, but great challenges sometimes come with great opportunities. It is a presidential election year in which we see an unprecedented number of women, especially women of color, running for office. It is a presidential election year in which the power of women to impact the direction of our country is recognized as being more significant than in the past. It is a presidential election year in which both the stakes and the interest are high. The League of Women Voters was founded by suffragists who understood the power of women to create a more perfect democracy, and who understood the power of organization to defend democracy by empowering voters to act. It is up to each and every one of us to build our beloved community by acting to ensure that everyone has the right, the desire, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate in this most critical year. Thank you.
Elisabeth, thank you. And thank you for your dedication to this organization. Now, at this time, we have a very special treat for you. But before I introduce him, I want to check in with our guests. A show of hands, please, for our guests who are enjoying the program. We want to remind you that you can always go to the chat box and click on the link to LWVGA's Zazzle site. There you can actually purchase customized masks, t-shirts, and other gifts while supplies last. And we also want to thank our sponsors right now who made today possible and who support the mission of the League of Women Voters. All Voting is Local, our title sponsor. Our Making Democracy Work sponsors include Elisabeth Poitras, Kilpatrick Townsend, Stockton LLP, and Creative Expressions by Gala. Our Your Vote, Your Voice sponsors include Shara Sanders, the Melville family, Jacqueline and Susanna Scott, Pearls of Wisdom by Linda Harris, Everyday Gourmet with Chef Arian Poe, Cicely Mason, musician, Reginald Harris, also musician, you heard him earlier, Sharon Blackwood, musician, League of Women Voters of Carrollton, Carroll County, Marcus Keegan of Keegan Law Firm, LLC, and Bela Biz. Our friends of the League donors include Tracy Atkinson, Anel Colvins, Juliana Hanoa, Thea Smith, Myra Tolbert, Aaron Woodruff, Fiona Bell, Mary Alston, and Jessica Lowe Minor, Kimberly Ross, Sharon Hill, and Brittany Cockrell. Thank you again for your generosity, especially during this difficult time. Now I want to introduce you to jazz musician Reginald Harris. We invite you to sit back and enjoy his mellow sounds. I'm not sure if everyone else can hear Reginald. Can they?
No, Reginald, you need to unmute yourself.
It's the virtual thing. Reginald, can you unmute, please? Because we would love to hear you. Okay, I think maybe we should continue on with our program until we can get Reginald back online. What do you think,
That
Linda?
makes sense.
Okay, let's, he was going to play a beautiful rendition of That Girl Is on Fire. And we really have come to the part of the program where we get to highlight the accomplishments of a phenomenal woman. So that would have been a perfect song. Now, this award is named after Eleanor Raoul Green, who became the president of the Atlanta chapter of the Georgia Woman Equal Suffrage League, formed back in 1914. Eleanor then served as organizer and press agent of the Fulton and DeKalb Counties branch of the Equal Suffrage Party of Georgia. She also served as president of the Atlanta chapter of the Georgia Woman Equal Suffrage League from 1914 through 1920. Eleanor helps establish the League of Women Voters in Atlanta and served as its president in 1922 and again in 1930. She remained active with the League throughout her life. The time of her leadership with the League saw increased political and voting participation by women. In 1930, Eleanor, as president of the League of Women Voters of Atlanta, published an article in the National Municipal Review exposing corruption in the Atlanta municipal government, which led to 10 indictments for fraud and corruption. One of Eleanor's most outstanding achievements, she became the first woman admitted to Emory University in 1917. Yes, she did that. Chancellor Warren Candler, who vigorously opposed co-education, was adamant that no women would matriculate at Emory. Legend has it, Eleanor convinced the dean of the Lamar School of Law at Emory to let her enroll in the law school while that chancellor was out of town. Yes, we find our way, don't we? Past recipients of this award include Martha Ann Saunders, Sally Fitzgerald, Elisabeth Poitras, Jacqueline Scott, Edna Kopetz, and more leaders from within the League, as well as community leaders. That's why the League is so proud to present this award to Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears, who's been on the battleground in the fight for democracy. Leah Ward Sears is a partner in the business litigation and appellate practice at Smith, Gambrill, and Russell LLP. Before returning to private practice, she enjoyed 17 years of distinguished service on the Georgia Supreme Court, including 4 years as Chief Justice. She was the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court, the first woman to serve as a Superior Court judge in Fulton County, and the first woman elected statewide in Georgia. Justice Sears holds a bachelor's degree from Cornell University, a JD degree from Emory University Law School, and an LLM from the University of Virginia. She also holds honorary degrees from Spelman Clark, Atlanta, Piedmont, LaGrange, Savannah State, and Morehouse colleges and universities, as well as the John Marshall Law School. Now, in addition, she's a recipient of the Emory Medal, the American Bar Association's Margaret Brent Award, the Daily Report's Lifetime Achievement Award, and she's been named a Best Lawyer in Georgia and a Georgia Super Lawyer for the past few years, just to name a few. Justice Sears was also bestowed the honor of being named the Lawyer of the Year appellate by the Best Lawyers in America for 2019. A biography of Leah Ward Sears entitled Seizing Serendipity, written by Professor Rebecca Davis, was published by the University of Georgia Press in September 2017. Everyone, please raise your hands, virtually, of course, for our 2020 Eleanor Raoul.
Okay, let's start it. Give me 1 second.
Just watch it.
Hello,
Okay.
Justice Leah Ward Sears.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I really appreciate that introduction. And I want to thank the League for bestowing on me the Eleanor Raoul Green Award. I have always had such respect for the League of Women Voters and the work that this organization has been doing for the last 100 years, educating voters about the voting process as well as the candidates and all the issues. This is a prestigious award from a prestigious organization, and I very much appreciate this high honor. I understand that because of the pandemic, our celebration this evening via Zoom is probably not what you would have all hoped for. I'm pleased, however, that we're still taking the time to celebrate Women's Equality Day, the day which commemorates the signing of the 19th Amendment, granting women in the United States the right to vote. After all, women continued the fight for the right to vote even during the 1918 influenza pandemic. Now, when I was told I would be receiving the Eleanor Raoul Green Award, I wondered who was this woman after whom this award is named? And adding on to what Sophia just said, this is what I found out. Eleanor Raoul was born in 1888 on Staten Island in New York. She was the 10th of 11 children of William and Mary Raoul. Eleanor's family moved to Atlanta in 1899. She began school here at Miss Mitchell's kindergarten and went from there to Atlanta's Washington Seminary. After completing her junior year at Washington Seminary, Eleanor attended St. Timothy's School in Maryland, where she graduated in 1905. Following her mother's passion for social activism, in 1914, the Georgia Women Equal Suffrage League was formed, and of course, Eleanor became president of the Atlanta chapter. Eleanor was also the first woman, as Sophia mentioned, to be, and I didn't know this as an Emory Law grad, but she was formally enrolled in Emory University Law School. She graduated in 1920. In 1928, Eleanor married Harry Green, who had graduated with her from Emory Law School. Her marriage didn't lessen Eleanor's commitment to community work. With financial assistance from her mother, Eleanor helped establish the League of Women Voters in Atlanta and became its president in 1922. She was active with the League throughout her life. She died in 1983 at 94 years old. Now, wow, what a life. And I am grateful to the Atlanta chapter to the Georgia chapter of the League of Women Voters for deciding that I was worthy to receive an award named in honor of such a dedicated community servant. Now, there's a phrase I'm sure everyone has heard by now, and it goes something like this. You've all heard it. It takes a village to raise a child. And in my case, it was the support of an entire village. First, the village, as it were, of the city of Atlanta, and thereafter the entire state of Georgia. And I count all of these as reasons that I was elected 4 times a judicial constitutional officer in this state. That village also includes an Ambassador Andrew Young, our keynote speaker this evening. He appointed me to my very first judgeship in 1982 when I was just 27 years old to the City Court of Atlanta. And while the offices I held as a jurist were always strictly nonpartisan, I am nonetheless an ardent promoter of participation in the political process through voting. Yes, I believe that voting is not just a right. I believe it's a sacred responsibility. There are few more critical civic activities than voting. It just takes a few minutes, but it has an impact for years to come. When I think of the many people who struggled, suffered, fought, and sometimes even died for my right to vote, I'm motivated all the more to make sure that my voice is always heard. Because when all the words are said, when all the charges are leveled, and the millions of dollars are spent, in the end, it's us, the voters, who have the power to decide who will lead our nation, who will lead our state, our communities into the future. And so I vote to honor people who struggled for civil rights, women's suffrage, and the ideas and ideals of justice for all whose diverse voices are essential for our nation's moral health and community vitality. I vote to be a good example to my children and my grandchildren, if and when I have any, because exercising the right to vote is a symbol of my faith in our democracy. By voting, I know that I'm sending a signal of the importance of the choices that we, as adults, make to secure a better future. I vote because I know that pollsters do not determine who wins elections, voters do. Predicting the outcome of elections is, especially close ones, is at best an inexact science. I vote for candidates in whom I believe and for or against ballot initiatives I know will affect our future. I vote because I believe that democracy is a team sport and that spectators simply don't count. And I vote because although I know my vote is confidential, the fact that I voted or did not vote is public record. And elected officials know which individuals and demographic groups are voting, and they are therefore more likely to be influential in policy debates. Non-voters are voiceless and by not participating can become victims of their own neglect. I vote because regret is preventable and the day after an election is simply one day too late. So I have a no excuses attitude by committing to vote, asking others to join me at the polls, and promoting a positive approach to making a difference among family, friends, and colleagues. And lastly, I vote because I like making history. After all, every indicator points to the fact that elections have impacts for years. So every single vote is important. I also know how close elections can be. Participating and affecting history gives me a sense of pride in participation and the power to touch the future. Voting is our society's great equalizer. No matter your station in life, your income, race, ethnic heritage, or social status, every citizen over 18 years old has the same power of one vote. Thank you very much for the recognition you've offered me by giving me this wonderful award tonight, and also by giving me a few minutes to address you. With sincerity, I thank you very, very much for this high honor. God bless you all.
Thank you, Justice Sears. And, you know, we really want to hand you your gift personally, but unfortunately the pandemic has prevented that. So we will mail you this beautiful vase to mark this occasion.
Thank you, it's beautiful.
And now, before I introduce our keynote speaker for the evening, I'd like to announce the winner of the raffle. The winner is Robin Collins and Betsy Patterson, the winner of the Ida in Her Own Words book, autographed by Michelle Duster, who, by the way, is the great-great-granddaughter of Ida B. Wells herself. The League will reach out to both of you so you can redeem your prizes. It is now time for us to hear from our keynote speaker for today's program. I am so excited to introduce you to the Honorable Ambassador Andrew Young. Andrew J. Young has earned worldwide recognition as a pioneer in and a champion of civil and human rights. Ambassador Young's lifelong dedication to service is illustrated by his extensive leadership experience of over 65 years serving as a member of Congress, an African-American U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, mayor of Atlanta, and ordained minister, among other positions. During the 1960s, Young was a key strategist and negotiator during civil rights campaigns that led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Appointed as an ambassador to the United Nations in 1977, Young negotiated an end to white minority rule in Namibia and Zimbabwe and brought President Carter's emphasis on human rights to international diplomacy efforts. As two-term mayor of Atlanta, Young brought in over 1,100 businesses, over $70 billion in foreign direct investments, and generated over 1 million jobs. Ambassador Young has received honorary degrees from more than 100 universities and colleges in the U.S. and abroad, and has received various awards, including an Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011 and the Dan Sweat Award in 2017. His portrait also became part of the permanent collection of the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. Young was born in 1932 in New Orleans. He currently lives here in Atlanta with his wife, Carolyn McLean. He is also a father of 3 daughters and 1 son, a grandfather of 9, and a great-grandfather of 1. I have witnessed his charm and immense knowledge on several occasions when I got a chance to interview him, and you're about to see it for yourself. Please welcome the great Ambassador Young.
Well, thank you very much. I hope I'm getting through. I'm not part of this young technical generation. They didn't even have telephones hardly when I was in my prime. But it's an honor to be with you because all of the things that you heard about me would not have happened if it hadn't been for a distinguished group of women that get too little attention and that we often forget. We're approaching the 100th anniversary, the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington. And the 6 civil rights organizations that organized that included the National Organization of Negro Women. And Dorothy Height, who was the president of that group, served really as the mediator and the peacemaker between a group of ambitious young men that each a hero and star in their own right. But when they got together, if it hadn't been for Dorothy Height, we might not have had a March on Washington. She happened to have gone to college on a basketball scholarship, and she was several inches taller than almost all of the men, any of the men. But she was wise and sweet and wonderful, and she served as the moderator that kept these ambitious young men together and produced the March on Washington. I came south to develop voter registration efforts, but I came because of a program by a young lady named Septima Clark from Charleston, South Carolina, who lost her job as a school teacher because she admitted that she was a member of the NAACP. Septima Clark then started teaching the longshoremen on the ferry boats coming from Johns Island to Charleston, 5 o'clock in the morning, and going back with them at the end of the day, giving them about a half hour each way of experience in how to read and write and to pass those complicated voter education tests. She was the one who developed the program that brought me south in 1961. And very few people have heard of her. When we came south and we got involved, I should say that one of the first people who we worked with was the father and mother of Congressman Jim Clyburn, who is now one of the leaders of the House of Representatives. You can see the direct correlation of the progress of our nation in the lives of the women that we seldom talk about and remember. I was with Martin Luther King when he went to see President Lyndon Johnson, and President Johnson was very depressed because for 3 hours before we met with him, he'd been talking with people about Vietnam, and they were sort of beating up on him, and he was, the first time, a discouraged Lyndon Johnson. And he only said to Dr. King, I agree with you. We need to strengthen voting rights. I just don't have the power. And he must have said that almost 10 times. His answer to everything, I agree, I just don't have the power. And when we left, I asked Dr. King, well, you need a rest anyway. and you have not had a time off since 1955, and this is 1964 in December, and take a year off. He said, no. I said, what are you going to do? He said, we're going to have to get the president some power. Well, he didn't know what he was talking about, and I laughed at him and teased him about being an arrogant Morehouse man and all that, but he was serious. What he knew that I didn't know was that the political process is also a spiritual process. And the day after we got back to Atlanta, we were visited by a young lady by the name of Amelia Boynton from Selma, Alabama. And she convinced us that we should come to Selma because the sheriff had refused to honor their rights to vote and would not even let them have voter registration meetings in their own churches. And across that bridge with John Lewis was Amelia Boynton, who was already in her 60s, I think, in 1965. And she lived across that bridge with President Barack Obama and lived to about 105, having started her work in Selma in 1929. So 1929 to 2010, and very few people realize that what's happening in Alabama today was developed by Mrs. Amelia Boynton in order to make sure that my family doesn't forget my 9th grandchild. We named Amelia. And there is a constant need for strong women to guide us, because you are the moral voice in a democracy. You transfer the faith, the confidence, the love, and your prayers instill in our society a vision and revelation of just what the maker of heaven and earth would have us do in this day and age and at this time. And so I thank you for all you have done and all that you're going to do, because we have a long, long way to go. Never in history have I known of 4 or 5 global crises, such as the health crisis that we faced with Corona. Black Lives Matter has gone all around the world. They were even marching in New Zealand about the death of George Floyd. We have a climate crisis that's taking aim at my home state of Louisiana right this minute as we speak. And I pray for all of the citizens who are going to have to live through, I don't know why they name all the bad tornadoes and, what do you call them, after women. So Marco left and went to the right, didn't do much damage, but now here comes Laura. And that's why we have to listen to the word of you women and why your power and wrath can shake up the planet. So thank you very much for all that you do, and God bless you, and keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Ambassador Young, for your inspirational words. It's always great to see you. I want to thank all of our program participants and our audience. We want to thank the event chairs and planning committee for a job well done hosting this virtual event. It has been difficult, but they pulled it off. This concludes our program. We want to invite you to join us for more events this week. Just go to the League's website. That's www.lwvga.org. I'm going to say that again. lwvga.org. You can get more information and register there. We also have more surprises and engaging programs for you there. I'm going to turn it over now to the League's president, Susanna Scott, for some final words.
Thank you, Sophia. And I just really appreciate what a great job you've done. We've got Reggie sorted out, so I'm going to throw it to him for his presentation. And then I'll speak to you all again. Reggie, are you?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Reginald. That was wonderful. And I am going to segue from that to announce one last special award that no one except 3 of us know about. Every organization needs one person who is the glue to making everything work. We've talked about some phenomenal women tonight, and there's one more to add to the list. The LWVGA board is a working board, but we're also working full-time jobs and managing households on top of all the work that we do for the league. So what we do could not be done without one person who holds us all together, Miss Christian Lester. She is our 2020 MVP. Christian, thank you so much for your willingness to pitch in, your amazing organizational skills, and your wonderful spirit. I could not do half of what I do without your support, so thank you very, very much. Linda, can you chime in and tell me if we've got an extra surprise?
We do. Ambassador Young, I hope you can hear me. We are ahead of schedule.
I hear you.
If you wanted to take a few questions for the audience, we just are so happy that you're here for your time with us.
I don't mind.
That is wonderful. So if you've got questions for the ambassador, why don't you raise your hand and we will unmute you if you raise your hand.
The technology holds up.
That is the tip.
Internet connection
is a little fuzzy.
And as Susanna does that.
But if you can hear, I'm okay.
Do you have a question you'd like to ask Ambassador Young?
Well, Alfreda Stukes has a question, so I'm going to allow her to talk. If you will unmute yourself, Alfreda, you can ask your question.
Okay, it's been a great evening and I've truly enjoyed the program. So I salute each and every one of you ladies for pulling this together. My question is to the beloved Ambassador Andrew Young. As you all know, what's on the top of everyone's mind is COVID-19 and the election. My question is, with COVID-19 pandemic and it's having a disappropriate effect on the communities of color, and I have to say especially on Black women and Black families, can you please share with us what change that you would like to see stemming from this upcoming election? What type of change that can affect and help the Black community overall?
Well, Dr. King talked about redeeming the soul of America from the triple evils of race, war, and poverty. We have made enormous progress on race. But while we have made enormous progress, there has been also a kind of a backlash which occurred, well, starting out in California in the 80s with the effort at the criminalization of many things that had just been, well, they'd been misdemeanors. And all of a sudden they were upgraded and we had the 2 strikes and you're out and things like that. That was done, I think, because Tom Bradley, the mayor of Los Angeles, came within 50,000 votes of becoming the governor of California. And I think there was that was part of a vote of suppression, the escalation of police activity. We also had, accusations and some ability to prove that the Iran-Contra thing was flooding the Black communities with drugs. So all of these kinds of things came together. And that's something that has been a burden on the society, and all of the progress we have made, we're still under excessive, the law has to be guided by the spirit, not used as a means of oppression. And I think Justice Leah Ward Sears could tell you much more about that. But I think that is what's creating the condition that we have now. But tonight, I understand that they had to cancel 5 NBA games, and they are refusing to play in protest of the shooting in the back of the gentleman in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So this is both the best of times and the worst of times. You add in the virus and the hurricanes, and I think we're going to have more aggressive and visionary leadership at every level. And because none of these problems can be solved by one state or one party or even one nation. The climate crisis has got to be involving the whole world. We're not going to have world trade. Atlanta thrived when I was mayor, only because I think I knew that most of the money was not in Washington. It was around the world. And having been at the United Nations, we took advantage of bringing the money into Atlanta and Georgia and bringing the Olympics. And it was our global connections that built us up to the city we are. Now, I think this is a particular time that we've got to have confidence in the strength of this country. I've been to 152 countries around the world. And somebody says, well, where would you want to live other than here? And I really can't find any place that I'd rather live than these United States. With all of its problems, it still has opportunities. There's still more freedom than most of the places I've been. And we are the hope of the world. But we tried to go backwards, and the world turns, and it's not going to turn backwards. And if we're trying to go backwards, we're going to fall off the planet one way or the other. And so I think this is the crisis. It's the crisis of confidence. It's believing in us, ourselves as a people. It's believing in our political and social order, and with all of its problems, having faith that we can work these out peacefully and democratically, and that the turmoil that we're experiencing is also it's a crisis and an opportunity. And I think that we vote in November for the opportunities to shape a new future. Then we have the challenge of coming together to define that future. The Constitution doesn't give you happiness. It gives you the pursuit of happiness. So voting for leadership in that pursuit. And I think that's what gives me hope, that can just hold on a little bit longer. Now, it's not going to be an easy election. I think the efforts to change the postal system and we had in my neighborhood, we had several polls. We're a heavy voting neighborhood in southwest Atlanta. And the fuses blew out in our voter neighborhood, and we had to go to another location last time, and that happened 2 or 3 places. So that let's blame it on the Russians. We know what's right, and women are the moral compass of a society. So I'm putting my faith in all of the mothers and wives and sisters and daughters to pray us through. And I don't have any doubt that we're going to make it. Whoever wins the election.
Thank you. The next person we've got in our queue is Regina Lewis Ward. I'm going to allow you to talk if you will unmute yourself. You're good to go, Regina.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone with the League of Women Voters of Georgia for hosting this event tonight. And Ambassador thank you for all your dedicated service to the people of Georgia, as well as the United Nations. So I am a candidate for Georgia State House. And if you had one piece of advice for me or others who are running for office, what would your advice be on staying the course and, more importantly, staying grounded once we became elected?
Well, Martin Luther King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And we have helped to bend that moral arc at the national level, only to find things that we have decided at the national level coming at us at the state level. And so I don't just think that we're electing a president. I think that the votes in our state legislatures have undercut many of the things that the Congress did. And so we've got to vote the whole ticket from the top to the bottom. And I know this is a non-partisan organization, but I think we vote for values and not just people. And if we're voting the values in which we believe and that our mama taught us, then we'll be all right. At the state level, at the national level, and we don't have local elections, but when we have local elections, they are every bit as important as national elections. That's why I was praying that our mayor would not be taken to Washington.
Well, thank you for that. And we've got one more question. Just because of time, we're going to go with the question we got in the Q&A. And Robin Collins asks, I would imagine you have met several United States presidents. Can you tell us an anecdotal story about an experience you had with a living past president?
Yes, I can. when I was sworn in as ambassador to the United Nations, President Jimmy Carter gave me a note, just on a little piece of paper about this size, saying, I want you to go to Africa, ask African leaders what they expect of this nation, this administration. And for me, that was a revolutionary note, because seldom does the United States of America go anywhere to ask anybody anything. We go around the world telling what we want done. By asking what people expect of us, he reversed our politics to what I call the politics of respect. And it turned out to be so powerful that everybody told us what they wanted was what we wanted. And that happened in Africa with me. It happened in the Middle East, where President Sadat and Prime Minister Begin could not say to anybody that they did not want another war. But they said it to Bob Strauss, who was President Carter's emissary to the Middle East. The Russians said the same thing to Cyrus Vance, Secretary of State. When Walter Mondale, the vice president, went to Asia, he heard from China and Russia, China and Japan and Korea, what they expected. And it was pretty much in line with what we needed. And I think that was the reason why I consider that one of the most successful presidencies of all time, because I think that's the only time in the history of the United States that not a single American soldier killed anybody for 4 years, and not a single American soldier got killed in battle. And it demonstrated that a sensitive, intelligent, respectful view of the world can be a peaceful and prosperous view of the world. He also left the country with a nearly balanced budget. It was about $1 billion off. But it wasn't dramatic. He wasn't seeking attention. And he voluntarily chose to head the Federal Reserve, a person that he knew would lead to because he was going to raise interest rates through the roof, stop inflation. And everybody told him that if he does that, you're going to lose the election. He said, I did not ask you about the election. I asked, who is the best person to stop inflation? And people urged him to drop a bomb on Iran. And he said, no, that will not bring the hostages home. They said, but it'll get you elected. He said, and kill 59 American citizens for my election? No, we will not do that. And so it was putting principle and purpose above power. And it really doesn't get any better than that.
That is so true. And it's a really great way of looking at what you want in a leader is, where they put their focus on. And so thank you for that anecdote. I want to thank Sophia yeah, please do.
Let me tell you one other little part of the story, because it's so simple and beautiful. The Camp David Accord had gone on for 12 days, and they had not agreed on a single thing. And they were packed up and said, we just have to, this has failed. We're sorry, but we're going home. Mm-hmm. And as a last gesture, President Carter gave each one of them a picture. He got a picture of each one of the presidents with their grandchildren. And when he handed them these framed pictures of themselves with their grandchildren, they got the message. If we don't settle this, we're just passing the trouble on to our grandchildren. And they stopped and they unpacked their bags and they went back. In the next 3 days, they reached the Camp David Accord, which has led to 50-some years of peace in the Middle East, at least between Israel and Egypt.
It's amazing.
That's the politics of respect.
Definitely. I haven't heard that story before, so thank you for sharing that. That's great. Well, I want to thank you, Ambassador Young, for being here and for speaking with us. I want to thank Sophia Choi for being a wonderful MC. I want to thank our other guests, Deborah Turner, who is inspirational and is a delight to work with. And I'm just pleased to have her as the national president. I want to thank Justice Leah Ward Sears for your words and for the work that you've done for the state of Georgia. And Reginald, you did a fantastic job, so thank you. And also Elisabeth MacNamara, who has already had to go, but she was my local league president. She was our state president. She was national president. And so she's left big shoes to fill, but she's always been there to answer questions and to provide support. So I'm grateful for her being here and just also for being a resource for us. And I want to thank, again, Linda and Gayla for planning Equality Week. They and their committee have just done a phenomenal job. I want to remind you guys that we've got the new Jim Crow community discussion tomorrow with Breonna Ward and Ross Brockway from the Georgia Justice Project as our special guests. Ticket sales in tonight, and the link is in the chat. And let me find my notes again. We want to invite everyone who is attending the event but not a member to join the League in the fight to defend our democracy. You can join by visiting lwvga.org. If you're not able to join, please consider making a donation to the League to support the important work that the League is doing in Georgia communities. And make a plan to vote on November 3rd. If you happen to live in the 5th District, make a plan to vote on September 29th because there's a special election. And make sure that you have your voice heard in the upcoming elections because it is important. So thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate you all. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.